It's been almost 5 months and 7,300 miles that we've spent with a brand new 2022 Toyota Tundra.
And now it is time to bid the Tundra adieu.
But before we say goodbye to an old friend, how about we really do a comprehensive look at what happened with the all-new Tundra that we had in our fleet for, like I said, almost 5 months.
Yeah.
And kind of go step by step, look at our ownership, the good, the bad, and maybe a couple of ugly elements. And also just, see, has it been a good truck or not?
I wanted to add a couple things to that. Absolutely, we do that. But on top of that, I wanted to say thank you to our Patreons.
Yes.
And I also wanted to go real quickly over Toyota Tundra history, because I think it's important that people understand why we got the truck and what led up to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Patreon.com/TFL Car. Thank you for your support. It means a lot to us. It helps us do these podcast shows. TFL Talkin Trucks, the one you're listening and watching right now, or of course TFL Car podcast as well.
That's right. One of the most popular truck podcasts in the world.
Yes, and it's helped by our video podcast, of course.
It is, of course.
So thank you very much for watching and listening. And also, we can tease, I think. Here's how we do business at TFL Truck and TFL in general.
Because people are going to be wondering why after only 5 months are we getting rid of the truck.
Why not 12 months? Why
Right.
not 2 years? Why not 3 years? Because a lot of you guys write me emails at ask@tfltruck.com, and all of us see it actually. And you guys say, your long-term update is not very long.
Sometimes that's true.
But hey, it's longer than 1 week, right? That we get with most
Normally,
vehicles.
at the most, 1 or 2 weeks are what normal loans are from these manufacturers. And for various reasons, we try with our long terms, which we buy, to keep them as long as practical, as long as logical. So bear in mind that everything from the environment, what vehicles are on sale, and also mileage, all of those play into why we rotate these trucks.
Yeah, so we do this with used vehicles as well. Like we've had several used truck and SUV comparisons.
Yeah.
We have another one coming up soon on TFL Truck, which is our Go Big series.
That's going to be exciting.
Where we have, used SUVs that we were playing with.
Giant ones, yeah.
Yeah, giant ones. And of course, we have brand new vehicles as well in our fleet. We're very lucky to do that. So the Tundra was one of those brand new, all new trucks, right? We had to have one.
Right.
It's been 14 years since the last generation came out. Yep. And we wanted to be the first. And we were basically, one of the first to get it.
One of the very first to get it. Andre flew out to Houston, Texas. The minute it was available, jumped in the truck and drove it straight back home.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. But I really quickly wanted to go over Toyota Tundra history, because some of you guys might be wondering, why is this truck so significant? What makes it so important? Now, the truck goes back to 1999. That's essentially when that style came out in the United States. Now, previous to that was the Toyota T100. The T100 was Toyota's first attempt here in the United States at fighting the full-size trucks that were out there. And the T100 really was just an enlarged version of the Tacoma, in terms of components and running gear and what have you.
And actually, I kind of want to own one. I've never owned one.
Dying to own one. They have a supercharged, well, it's a long story, but factory-installed TRD supercharged version, which would be awesome up here in Colorado. Plus, I think the size is just phenomenal. It's a great size. Tundra came out, replaced it. Tundra was really the first real shot at going after the big three.
Because the T100 was a little bit smaller than the rest, right?
It really
wasn't
was.
A crew cab, actually.
And it didn't have a V8 either.
Yeah.
So this new Toyota comes out, the Tundra, with a V8, later on 2 different V8s, and they really started to make a name for themselves. But there were a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, when it came out, it was already kind of behind for one reason. No heavy-duty version, and only a few different types of cab/bed configurations compared to some of the others like Ford, right? And over time, they never really caught up with the other automakers when it came to that. The variety was very small. So, okay, we get it. Smaller thing, you still have a very reliable truck. Toyota really made them, a name for themselves with building trucks that last up to 1 million miles or more.
Yeah.
So we got that. That was really cool. But they still remained back in the past when it came to powertrains. Even when they updated the truck and they basically put in a brand new frame, brand new body and everything else, with their second generation, that still wasn't quite enough because it immediately was being outdated again by other vehicles, including Ford going to a twin turbocharged V6. So let's fast forward to last year. The last model of the Toyota Tundra, the way you guys remember it, with the big V8.
Yeah.
Fantastic truck. Not very fuel efficient, and once again, kind of lacking in terms of its...
Well, some of the technology was already being dated.
Extremely old technology.
Which is understandable, right? And that's the way Toyota did things and does things, right?
With almost every vehicle they have the attitude of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Let's keep it running as long as possible. And remember, the longer they build a vehicle, the longer they build anything, it pays for itself quicker and quicker because the stampings and everything else and all the research that it took to build the vehicle, every year you continue to build that vehicle, you're making more money because it costs even less to produce if you look at the return on their investment. So now we're finally up to the day that Andre flew out to Houston, Texas to pick up our new Tundra.
Yes, so the Tundra is still built in San Antonio, Texas, which is very close to Houston. So the way it worked out, that was kind of the quickest way to get it.
Right.
Because apparently a lot of them, or if not all of them, get shipped to Houston, and then they kind of get distributed across the country.
That's what I've heard.
And also to other markets, right? For example, Canadian markets and etc. So that was very exciting. I was able to grab it, purchase it once again for the company, and I drove it about 1,100 miles.
Straight home.
Almost right away, yes.
Yes.
That evening, and then the next day, I took a break, of course, overnight. And I wanted to do kind of a first road trip test and also a fuel efficiency test.
Okay, now before you get on that, let's talk about what the truck is itself in terms of what we paid for it and what trim level it is and what it has.
Yeah, totally. So we decided on a limited trim. And in Tundra, in Toyota speak, it's kind of a mid-level.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at like Ford and Ram and some others,
That's like near the top.
they're like luxury trucks. Well,
Right.
in Toyota speak, limited is kind of a mid-grade, which is cool. And the reason why we chose it, we wanted, first of all, two things. We wanted the latest tech, the biggest screen, because we wanted to share it with you guys. And then we also wanted TRD off-road package.
Right. So why didn't
for off-roading.
But why didn't we get the TRD Pro, which is the full hybrid version of the super powerful off-roady truck?
That's a great question. It's because it wasn't on sale yet.
Right.
In fact, the TRD Pro, because it was a hybrid only, is just now, as we speak here in April, is only now coming online and being produced and being sold. We would have preferred, of course, to get a Pro because it has more tech,
Right.
hybrid technology, etc., but we couldn't. So we chose this. The Limited was kind of a simpler way to get the technology we wanted, because we also could have gotten an SR5.
Sure.
But because we wanted to be first, we were a little bit nervous. So SR5s may not have been built first, etc. And then, of course, we put the TRD off-road package on top of it, which gives you special suspension, Bilstein. It gives you a rear locker. It gives you some drive modes, right, for off-roading.
All of which were not available on the previous model.
Exactly, because the selectable locker was not around before then.
Which drove me crazy.
Yeah, I know. I've watched many videos of you and Roman
Screaming about it.
So, and like you said, they redesigned every nut and bolt.
Every nut and bolt.
The frame is new. The suspension is redesigned. It now has coil springs in the back.
Yeah.
Right. The engine is new. It's a new twin turbo.
It's a twin turbo V6. Its output altogether is better than the V8 that it replaces. And then on top of that, it's more efficient.
Exactly. So 389 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. And it's now made it to a 10-speed. Not the 6-speed that was there before.
Right.
And efficiency is up to about 22 on the highway, depending on the configuration.
Right, but you didn't get that at first.
No, I did not, and it's understandable, right? So what are the factors of road trip, right? Higher speeds usually.
Yep.
Because I'm going on a highway and I'm trying to get home. And of course, it's a brand new engine. So it's not
literally just came off the assembly line. Hasn't been broken
off the
in.
truck right there.
Yeah, it hasn't been broken in.
Off the train. I think it's maybe even was on the train from San Antonio to Houston.
Okay.
Anyway, so those factors combined, and in the middle of the trip, I did a check on the fuel efficiency, and I got about 18.9.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like spectacular, but when you consider the previous truck got about 14, or sometimes less.
On a good day.
On a good day.
Right.
And considering then some other trucks, like F-150s even, and Rams and GM trucks get about the same on the trip, that's a good result. That means the truck is now, if not better than average, it's just on par with everybody else.
Agreed. So let's talk about that trip and then work our way to what happened next.
Yeah, so the trip was actually, what impressed me the most is just kind of the cabin, the quietness of it, right? And it's kind of important during a road trip because, you're going long distance, you don't want to hear, lots of noise, you don't want to get tired, especially driving by yourself. And I had my wireless Apple CarPlay, loaded up on I was listening to my podcasts, I was listening, to music.
Right.
And it was a great experience. With one exception, it was my seat bottom comfort. My legs were not super happy. So my legs were partially, kind of sometimes they fall asleep a little bit.
Sure.
When you're sitting weird. So I don't know, maybe it's just my build, the way that my body is, but for the long haul, I did not find the seats very comfortable.
Okay, and you're not the first person to say it either. Some people with stubby legs seem to be more comfortable driving that than people with really long legs. And
giraffes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
or you and Roman.
Okay.
And Grant, too, by the way.
Yeah.
All of which are just ridiculously tall. So that is one issue. And another issue that I'm just going to throw up right now is that the few times that I have driven that truck, I had some infotainment issues. And I really didn't... I wasn't a huge fan of some of the tech, especially being screamed at by the lane keep system. Stuff like that kind of bothered me, but the actual ride with the coil springs is vastly superior to the vehicle it replaces. It rode so much better.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think it's also the testament to the Tier D off-road package because the suspension is tuned a little bit softer maybe.
Yeah, for off-roading.
For off-roading. And the Bilstein shocks are a pretty high-quality product.
Right.
So I'm really glad that Toyota and Bilstein are working together on this. And they actually have Bilsteins in the Tacoma lineup as well. So the two companies have been working together for some time.
Correctamundo.
Which is really, really great. We'll talk about off-roading later.
Yeah,
because
we did it.
We did a lot of it.
Yeah.
But we also, how about for the next one, how about we talk about towing? Because that's a huge part of what we do.
Yeah, and really there were, I would say, 3 real towing trips that we did with that truck. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but bear in mind that these towing trips encompassed thousands of miles. So it's a lot of driving with a big, heavy trailer behind you.
Yeah, as of right now, when we were saying goodbye to the Tundra, we have 7,300 miles, 7,300 miles in just a short period of time.
Right, and I estimate that about almost 4,000.
I would say more than half, yes.
Yeah, more than half we're towing.
We're actually towing miles.
Yeah, and not lightweight either. We're talking pretty heavy trailer.
8,000 pounds of trailers.
And a trailer that doesn't like to be towed that much in terms of its wind resistance and drag. So we'll cover that in a sec. So
yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
And we've also done iGauntlet, at least two of them.
Yeah, 2 of them. I remember.
So iGauntlet is World's Toughest Towing Test, which is what we do at TFL Truck.
Yeah, we started it.
And you actually coined the term.
I did indeed.
iGauntlet.
Yeah.
Yes. Because Eisenhower Johnson Memorial Tunnels is at the top of I-70. Continental Divide, and up to it's about 8 miles of 7% grade. Super, super hard highway to tow on.
Right. We're talking about an elevation that is very difficult on all engines, especially gas engines, and then especially naturally aspirated ones. However, if you have a diesel that's usually turbocharged, or in this case, a turbocharged V6, it performs much better.
Yeah, so we got pretty good results. In fact, we had a sound meter during our first test on the Ike. It was the quietest cabin of any other truck we tested.
Which is extraordinary because Ford is really good at making a quiet cabin. They pride themselves on quiet tuning.
And then Ram did the same.
Right.
Ram also upped their game.
Yeah, but this was quiet. And one of the reasons why that engine really surprised me, this is my favorite part of the truck. We were towing a heavy load at high speed. And
60 miles an hour.
Yeah, and it was just over 2,000 RPM. It was behaving almost like a diesel. And this is a turbocharged engine. Turbocharged engines usually require pretty high RPM to really make that power, right? In this case, it's just kind of lagging along. Yeah, I'm good. And it felt like an old school diesel. going up the hill. It never needed power input to go up that hill any quicker than it did. A remarkable, remarkable achievement.
Yeah, which also makes it kind of more relaxing for the driver, right?
I agree. Because hearing the engine.
Yeah, the engine is not like, approaching red line, right?
Like the Tacoma would.
Yeah. Or some other mid-sizers.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Cranking up the hill. So it really worked well.
And also the other remarkable part was the stability of it, I felt. Because, so they made the frame a little bit wider in the rear than before.
Yeah, they offset the suspension too, so it's further out.
Yeah, so stability was remarkable. And when they say the truck will tow, over 11,000 pounds of rating, they mean it. I mean, towing 8,000 pounds like we were doing, I felt like we could load another 2,000 pounds in there easily and still be stable and still be confident in towing.
Yes, but there were a couple questions that's including payload, because the payload on that truck is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's once again kind of on par with competition.
Yeah.
1,400 pounds is the payload on our truck. Obviously, other models, two-wheel drive models, you can go higher or lower depending on your. It depends a lot on the options you have inside of your truck. Our truck does not have a sunroof.
No.
It does not have a panoramic roof. It does have ventilated and heated seats. So it has some luxury.
But they're like thick leather, if I recall, aren't they?
Yeah, it's kind of the I forget what they call it.
Pleather or whatever.
But it's not the high-end capstone leather from the Lexus, right?
Yeah.
So 1,400 pounds is good. Like we had the Ram 1500 backcountry, right? Had almost the same payload.
Right.
1,400 pounds is just about average for a half-ton four-wheel drive crew cab, which is this truck is. So I wasn't blown away by that either. And actually, if you look at the curb weight of the Tundra, it's a little bit heavier than the rest. They overbuilt it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it just has that kind of heft.
It certainly feels like it's a heavy truck, but it performs like a much lighter truck. And part of that does have to do, once again, with the coil spring suspension. I noted back in the day, years and years ago, I got to go to the event for the Ram when they swapped Rams over to coil springs. It was the same type of thing, night and day in terms of regular street performance and day-to-day performance. But let's go into, so now we've had the truck for a little while, and now it's time for its first big tow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we did a couple of them, like you mentioned. So the first big major trip was also towing, actually, the truck, Grant, on our team, took the truck from Denver to Los Angeles, unladen, with no load. Actually, there was a motorcycle.
Yeah,
there was a little motorcycle in the back.
He was delivering, it was like
it was a Honda.
No, it was different. Yeah, it was the
Honda Navi.
That's right.
I think it was a little Navi.
Yeah, so was that a...
No. Anyway, we were delivering a motorcycle.
Yeah.
It was a little Honda, but it wasn't a Navi because we picked up a Navi.
That's right. We picked up the Navi.
Yeah.
We dropped something else off.
Yeah. So once again, a little bit of payload in the truck. Grant was just on his way down to Los Angeles. He stopped to rest, I think, in St. George, Utah. And then he got up actually about the same MPG on laden, actually with a motorcycle, kind of laden, about 19 MPG. Once again, high speed, highway driving over like 3 mountain ranges that he went. So he was pretty happy with it, actually. He said that it was comfortable once again. And then we hitched up a big camping trailer.
That's right. So let's talk about that trailer. It was unique because it's not your average bumper pool travel trailer. This thing is beefy.
It was heavy duty.
Yeah.
It is heavy duty.
Yeah, it is.
Black Series HQ19. So Black Series, and we've had it on our channel actually a couple times.
Several times, actually.
Yeah, actually we've done many towing kind of videos with it. Black Series actually originated, it's kind of Australian design. It's partially constructed in China, and then they ship kind of the big exterior components to Los Angeles.
Right, where they do the final assembly.
Yeah, the City of Industry. Does that sound right?
Yes, City of Industry.
That's where we were. So we picked it up at the City of Industry, where they finish everything, the interiors and all the components. And this trailer, just by itself, with nothing, no supplies inside of it, weighs almost, just over 7,000 pounds.
Okay.
Because it has a heavy-duty frame, it has heavy-duty suspension.
Right.
It's aluminum construction as far as the framing is concerned.
Big, beefy tires. And
Big,
it
huge tires.
sits very high,
Yes.
too. I mean, the ground clearance on the thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, because it's built for kind of overlanding trips. So
It's
you
not
can
kind
take,
of. It is built for overlanding
and we
trips.
did overlanding with it, actually.
We did indeed, and it is built for that, although it is also very tall and it's fleet-sided, and it is not what I would consider an aerodynamic marvel.
Yes, and it's 25 feet long.
Yes.
It's called HQ19 because the interior is 19 feet long.
Right, but the whole
it's
frame
actually
and
the
everything.
whole frame. Has 2 spare tires on the back.
Yes.
So, I mean, this beast is big.
It's a big trailer.
So we towed it on the way back. Leaving Los Angeles, we didn't start our efficiency in Los Angeles because you have to climb. And that's
Right.
not fair. It's not fair when you're climbing like 4,000 feet just to start.
Right. So you just got to get the hell out of LA.
We got near Barstow, I
There you
think.
go, yeah.
And then we kind of said, let's fill up, let's start our MPG loop right here.
Now, you flew out to get the trailer.
Yeah, because we met Grant in Los Angeles.
Right.
So I flew to LAX. Grant picked me up. Bam, and we swap bikes at Honda. By the way, TFL Bike. You got to check out that channel.
Yes. The boys at TFL Pike, even though they do have issues, they are great guys and do great motorcycle stuff.
What issues do they have?
Lots of psychological and personal issues.
Okay, so watch the channel.
Which is half the fun right there. No, but in all honesty, we went and swapped bikes out. So now we do have a Navi, which weighs
like 200 pounds.
It's just under 200 pounds, I think. Oh, it's a little more. But it's a small bike, and we put it in the back of the truck, but we also put in all of our gear and our sleeping
and the trailer.
And
there are 3 guys in there.
Right.
So Alex and I and Grant. So there are 3 dudes, a motorcycle, towing the trailer. This thing was maxed out on payload.
Right.
I think we had at least 1,400 pounds, maybe a couple pounds more.
Yeah, so we probably went over payload, which we discussed
Just
before.
by a couple of pounds.
Yeah, which we we're not advocates of this, not one bit. But in this case, we just assumed we'd be at, and so we were just slightly over. And they, Andre is the pro, so he figured out, maybe the motorcycle shouldn't hang off the tailgate. It should be closer to the cab, and all these other things.
Yeah,
you guys figured out.
We tried to distribute the weight the best we could.
So, and probably some of you viewers are like, well, why didn't you put the motorcycle in the trailer? And that's a really good question, Andre.
It is. They also built a toy hauler version of the Black Series.
But the one we had wasn't.
The ones we had did not. And I actually considered opening the regular door and shoving that motorcycle in there, but it's a luxury trailer.
We didn't want to leak gasoline on the inside of it just in case, or rubber.
Or damaging the countertops and beautiful cabinetry.
Yeah.
And
how much is this trailer worth?
It's $95,000.
$95,000.
And this is luxury appointments,
Yeah, it's a beautiful interior. So that's why we didn't throw the motorcycle in there and just like, there you go. Just the very good reason for that. So let's talk about the trip itself.
So we measured the fuel efficiency again because we always do this. We want to give you real world scenarios because you do this. You could be doing this too.
Precisely.
Towing a camping trailer on your vacation. Mm-hmm. Once again, the ride. So, a couple things were against us. Also, the wind. It was quite windy. Mm-hmm. So, and what we found out was because this Black Series trailer has, the articulating 3-dimensional hitch.
Right. So it's not a pintle hitch, but it's similar to it in terms of it's built for off-roading.
Yeah. So it can articulate over obstacles. It's called polyblock. And there was some sway because we had hard winds, crosswinds coming across us, and there was a bit of sway, and we didn't have a weight distribution hitch because of polyblock design. It's a very specific design, so we couldn't just go stop at Harbor Freight and slap one on there. So that was a part of the issue, but still, the truck helped us, stay safe. And I think we got, if my memory serves, just under 9 mpg.
Okay.
Which does not sound good.
But you guys were flying down the road, and you had high winds, and you had maximum load.
And we had maximum load, exactly.
Right.
So maybe if you have a big trailer like the Black Series, maybe like a 3/4-ton diesel truck might be better for you.
Right.
But still, the Tundra did it with safely and
now, I noticed a little bit of squat, but it wasn't too bad.
It was squatting, yeah, of course.
It was squatting, but it wasn't too bad.
It wasn't dangerous.
Right, and the headlights adjust, am I right?
Exactly, which is a really cool feature. And it's actually the headlights are adjustable with the driver can do it.
Right.
Not automatically as well. So, so if somebody happens to flash you, let's say you're towing heavy and your nose is a little bit high, you can just on the left side by the steering wheel, just lower the headlights, and everybody's happy.
Now, what's cool is that the old Tundra could do that as well, but not as easily. You actually had to do a little bit of work and a little bit of acrobatic movement in order to get to it and make it move. Now, you guys drove basically to Moab, Utah. Am I correct?
Exactly, because we wanted to drive with the trailer off-road, which we did. We went to Onion Creek Trail near Moab, Utah, which is a light trail. Mm-hmm. But this was what, February?
Yeah, about that.
And the creek was frozen over in most places. And what happens was you become an icebreaker. You start driving on top of this ice.
It's like driving on creme brulee.
Yes, and then you go boom, and it kind of, you break through the ice.
And you drop down.
And it's only maybe 6 or 8 inches that should drop down. So
right.
Not a huge drop, but still. This is tough on the truck and the trailer.
Big time, because now you're pushing a bunch of ice, which is creating more resistance. On top of that, you're driving through sub-freezing temperatures and water.
And towing.
And here's the funny part, inside story, guys, is that when Andre was getting there, I wasn't with him, which is a shame because I would have laughed. Was it the park ranger who kind of came by and was like, I don't know where you're going to turn that thing around, son.
We met a couple people. There was a very nice couple in a Subaru. Mm-hmm. And they were like, we don't recommend you go, because their eyes were big. You know how my eyes get big sometimes?
Yes, I do.
Their eyes were big because they're like, what is this guy doing? Why is he driving this giant trailer through the ice and all this stuff? And we're like, it's okay. I know what I'm doing. And then,
famous last words.
And then we met some off-duty land management guys, which were great guys and gals, actually. And they were like, first of all, one of our GoPros happened to fall off my tailgate, and they actually found it, picked it up, and gave it back to me.
Which is awesome.
Incredible.
We never get that.
Yes, and they happened to see it, and they did not drive over it, which could have been dangerous, right?
People have done that to us before.
Yeah. So, and then they were like, anyway, so.
And they suggested that there's no place to turn around.
And they were in the Ford Explorer.
Yeah.
And they said, you probably should turn around. But turning around a 25-foot trailer is easier said than done. So,
right you are, Andre.
Everything was fine. We have a full video on TFL Truck. I was sweating a bit turning this thing around because I was like, the other danger of this. In the canyon by Onion Creek, there's no reception whatsoever. We had one vehicle. There was no support vehicle following us. I'm like, if I get stuck here, we're going to be here for at least a day.
Yes.
Maybe more.
Yes.
Thank goodness we have a luxury trailer where we all can sleep
camp
in.
Out, yeah. So another quick backstory is that in Onion Creek, we did have an incident years ago with a vehicle that did break down. And I had to stay behind in a tent when the guys had to go out to Denver, to Boulder.
Get a trailer,
and then come back and tow that vehicle out. So I can attest to Andre's perspective. A, no reception. And B, it really sucks if you don't have something nice to stay in if you're stuck there.
Well, you had something else going on. There were coyotes walking around your tent.
There were mating calls. It was insane. But
did they want to mate you? Or
I don't
something
know.
Else?
They got really close to my tent. Like their noses were pressed against the tent. And I could actually see the outline of their nose pressed in at like 3
And you
morning.
had no weapons to defend
I made
yourself.
a weapon. All right. Oh yeah. I was ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah. I watch movies. No, it was pretty horrible. Anyway, the point is that Onion Creek, great place by the way, especially if you want to do just light off-roading and be in the desert. But at the same time, not good for reception and not good for towing a long trailer that you want to turn around in the middle of nowhere. And Andre managed to do it. He did. There's minor damage, really nothing huge, right?
Well, not so. I happened to bend slightly the jack on the trailer. The leg that comes down off of the trailer. So I bent that. Sorry, Black Series. Before this trip, Roman and I went off-road, and Roman put a crack in the rear bumper, which we'll talk about next. And I added to the crack. I made the crack bigger because of the ice.
Yes.
The ice was a problem.
Well, that ice is it's not friendly and not easy to go through. So you made it through all that. You made it around. You got out of there.
And got back home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a whole experience, and it was a testament actually to the truck.
That truck ran flawlessly.
Yeah, and also the trailer helped us get over obstacles,
Right.
which was incredible for a big trailer like this.
Sure.
So then we had a different trip just to wrap up the towing. Grant and I, once again, we went from Denver to Phoenix. It's just another 1,100 miles approximately,
Right.
or 1,000 miles, and we were actually delivering one of our classic trucks, the Ford F100.
Yeah, that's for a new series that's coming out.
Yeah, we're still working on the series. We're trying to repower this old, tired Frankenstein F100 truck. So stay tuned on that. We're working with a company called Legacy EV, which is an electrification kind of kit and education company. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be exciting. We're kind of in the middle of this project, so we cannot talk
That's
about
why we
everything.
can't talk about it very much.
So not all the specifications, et cetera, et cetera. So that's coming. That's very exciting. And it did a little bit better. I got like 9.3 mpg, towing, once again, 8,000 pounds.
I was going to say, it's pretty
so
close to
heavier
the same-
trailer,
Yeah.
but a little bit more aerodynamic because the pickup truck, even though it's old,
It's still rounded.
it's still slightly rounded, so it's a little bit more aerodynamic.
Right,
So,
right.
and it's not as tall, obviously. So we got slightly better fuel efficiency, towing greater weight.
Right.
So that's just kind of a testament to it depends on what you're towing, basically.
Right. Also depends on the route that you're taking too, because let's be honest, you're
It
headed.
still was relatively mountainous. Not as much though.
Right.
Because we had to go to Albuquerque first and then go to Flagstaff and et cetera, et cetera.
So, and then on the way back, did you tow stuff too? I think you did have to tow at least the trailer.
Yeah, Grant brought the empty trailer back. And I don't remember what he got. I think he got like 13 mpg.
Which one's going to make sense?
Yeah, empty trailer. It's pretty good. So,
Okay, so we towed, as you can see, in a very short amount of time, we towed a lot with it. But we did more with it than just tow. We took the damn thing off-road, we did.
yes. And we also drag raced it several times.
Several times.
Yes. So we have drag race videos with it. Let's talk about off-roading because that's
Yes.
important.
Yes,
and
it
then
is.
maybe we can round up with a drag race.
Right.
So good and bad. I think the Tier D off-road package is an affordable package. It costs, there's several of them for the new Tundra, but ours was about $3,000. For that, you get wheels and tires.
Right.
You got Bilstein shocks, you got rear locker, you got some drive modes, and just, kind of a visual, also some of the visual elements to it. So relatively affordable package, relatively capable package, but there are a couple of issues. So, you get skid plates too.
Yes.
A couple of issues. There's a chin that hangs down.
There's a low chin.
So the approach angle is not the best in class by far. Also, wheels are 20-inch rims. Wheels.
Yeah.
So the profile of the tire is not very big.
No, so airing down and having really beefy sidewall and all that, not as easy to do with a giant wheel.
And I'm not sure. I mean, they look good,
Yeah.
but I wish Toyota would also offer maybe another
17
option.
or an 18 or something
Yeah,
like
17 or 18. So you get some beefier sidewall so you can air down and maybe have some better traction overall. Although I took the Tundra versus the Ram 1500 on one of our trails, the Rocky Top Trail in Colorado. And I actually was impressed by the traction of these tires. They did really well. The four-wheel drive system is really good.
That's what I hear, and it does have off-road modes that also help you when you're off-road, which is great.
And the rear locker, you can click it, it engages,
It just fires right
but
away.
only in 4 low. So you have to be in 4 low.
So it won't engage in 4 high?
Right. And I don't know why Toyota decided to do that, but I guess they're thinking about low speed crawling, basically.
Okay, fair enough there, but there is a problem. Despite I'm looking at it.
Does it have to be in the front?
Yeah, it does. So for those of you who are listening, we are talking about the very front end of the truck, and there's something that's missing. I know I talk about it a lot. I know that seems like I belabor the point.
I also talk about it.
But I think we agree on this. It doesn't have tow hooks, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. No tow hooks up front.
Correct. So there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, because we tried to study this question. First of all, there is a aerodynamic chin spoiler that's movable, comes out on speed and goes up. So there's some mechanisms behind the front bumper.
Sure.
Also, what appears to be happening is Toyota is thinking into the future and future crash protection and safety regulations, and tow hooks, because they're so stiff in the front, may not be very friendly to future regulations. Understandable, right?
I guess.
But what happens if you're trying to help your friend, pulling them out,
And it's happened to me before.
or you get stuck yourself?
I've been in half a dozen vehicles where I use the tow hooks. And that's just light off-roading and just certain situations. I've been with people dozens of times who have used tow hooks because I hang out with a bunch of guys who take Jeeps off-road and whatnot, or large trucks. Every single pickup truck that's currently being built has tow hooks up front. Toyota does not. Now, yes, maybe they're thinking about the future and safety, but they can find a way to make sure that you have some access, which there's none, underneath the truck in the front somewhere where you can hook up something to drag someone or yourself out of trouble. And that is a huge issue.
Well, some cars have little cutouts and you screw an actual hook.
An eye hook.
An eye hook into it.
Or an eye bolt.
I mean, so, a couple things. So first of all, the aftermarket, I'm sure, will solve some of this.
I'm sure they will.
There's also like some customized bumpers already being developed and designed,
which is good.
And maybe Toyota themselves may have an accessory of some sort.
But it doesn't make any sense because they didn't even do that on the TRD Pro version of the truck, which you thought, or I thought, okay, maybe they'll do it on that one, and then it'll make sense. Then it does have a different bumper.
And it still does not have tow hooks.
Right, exactly. Right. So my biggest gripe really out of having this truck in our fleet for 5 months, so almost half a year, is really the tow hooks. That is really my biggest issue. I got used to the way it looks. It's still not my favorite looking truck. It's okay. I think that we can both agree that Toyota took a major leap in the right direction because they took a truck that wasn't competitive. And let's face it, guys, I know a lot of you guys are huge fans of the old Tundra, but the old Tundra on paper was not competitive with what Ford, GM, and Ram were building. Not in terms of, its overall efficiency and capability. Right. Yeah. So
and towing capability as well.
Right. So they went from that point and they did a huge leap over their previous truck and right in the middle of the mix of these other trucks. But they did not build something that's class leading really in any way that I can think of.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And so just to kind of continue on the off-road capability of this truck, I think it has a lot of good elements. The four-wheel drive system, like we just mentioned,
it works
is really great.
Yeah.
It still has that sometimes a glitch where shifting from too high to four high sometimes takes a while. Mm-hmm. It's a little temperamental. And I think this is my take on it. I think it's because they talk about the transfer case being very, very heavy duty. Because this is Toyota, they will not accept.
They overbuilt it.
They overbuilt stuff. So maybe because it's a larger chain that's inside the transfer case, this is just my take on it. Maybe sometimes it's temperamental. It doesn't want to shift from one to the other. It also doesn't have all-wheel drive mode, which a lot of other competitors do.
Almost every other competitor does.
Yeah, I think the Titan does not, but everybody else does.
Exactly.
So that's another question.
Yeah.
Maybe Toyota still prioritized durability, ultimate reliability over that feature.
When you get a chance to drive the Capstone, I'm curious to whether or not they added all-wheel drive to that.
I don't think so, because I've seen it in person. I've seen the Capstone. And no, I don't know. All-wheel drive is not available.
That's
and
crazy.
Why is this a big deal? So it's a big deal in states like Colorado, upstate New York, other areas where where sometimes there are conditions where some of the road is dry and some of the road is either slippery or wet. And you don't know, am I in four-wheel drive? Am I in two-wheel drive?
Right.
So putting it in all-wheel drive just solves that problem for you.
My old Nissan Pathfinder had an all-wheel drive option. It did. It had an auto option.
Actually,
brilliantly.
My neighbor Tim, he had a 2001 GMC Sierra heavy duty. Mm-hmm. His 2001 truck had all-wheel drive mode. So we know it's possible.
Exactly. So I don't want to hear anybody giving, I'm sure there's packaging reasons, and I know that they did a lot of things to make sure that this truck is fairly affordable. And in honesty, if you look at the various trim levels, SR5 on up, it's a fairly affordable truck considering all the new tech it has.
Ours had a sticker of $57,000, about like $125,000.
Right, and it's a mid-level truck at that point.
Exactly, but it is a four-wheel drive with a TRD off-road package, so it had a lot going for it.
Right, more goodies.
So yes, it is still a good value because I think Toyota still has an eye for this, right? They have an eye for affordability, even though they now have the Capstone, which is also $70,000 plus, but it's a more refined interior.
It's basically the Lexus of Tundras.
It's almost the Lexus of Tundras.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, still the value I think is pretty good. If you don't, we're not going to mention markups right now. It's
No,
a
we're
different
not going
subject.
there, no.
So overall, I would, like I said, off-road capability is both good and bad. There's a lot of good about it, but some of the clearances are not as great as they could be.
Right.
The tires maybe are not as great for airing down. Right. So there's a couple of little hitches with it.
So let's start to boil this down and just give our overall impression of owning this vehicle for a while and really driving the hell out of it. Because if you think about how many miles we put on it in this amount of time, which is one of the reasons why we're getting rid of it, because we have an excess of miles over the average of what the miles should be.
Yes, and also you guys are getting tired of it.
Yeah, that's the other part. You know, the Tundra's been in like every 5 videos that we produce with truck.
We've done 25 videos feature where this Tundra was a part of.
Yes.
So
and just recently we had another drag race.
Exactly. So at some point, you guys who watch TFL Truck, they're like, what's next?
Yeah.
You know, we know the Tundra now.
Yes, exactly. So and we will revisit Tundra as often as they give us an opportunity.
Well, for example, we still haven't done an Ike with a hybrid.
Right.
So that's coming. I promise.
Yes.
So I'm working with Toyota and I'm trying to get a hybrid Tundra, and we should get a Pro very soon,
which is huge.
Yes. So that's coming. So overall, to kind of summarize what happened, we also did an oil change, by the way. I'm holding an oil change report in one of the images if you're watching. We did an oil change at about 5,000 miles, even though technically, you know, that oil change meter said please maintain it after 10,000. In the manual, in the owner's manual, it said if you're putting a lot of miles on the truck or you're working it hard, please change the oil sooner.
Which is what we were doing.
Which is what we were doing.
Yes.
So, and the report, the analysis report came just fine.
Yeah.
It was one of the first Tundra turbocharged engines the lab saw, but they did nothing like, there was no warning signs that something was bad.
No shavings or anything else.
No.
Or contaminants.
No contaminants, no fuel, no significant fuel in the oil, which kind of tells you that there may be some leaks going on or something. None of that. It was we never had any wastegate turbocharger issues that people mention sometimes.
No, the mechanics of the vehicle were strong the entire time.
Some of you guys emailed us like, are your bolts loose on the axle? No. There were no loose bolts. There were no turbocharger issues. The truck was really strong. It
was. So now to wrap up, and I agree with you on all that. And by the way, just so you know, yes, we drag raced it a lot because we like to do that. And it's quick. It's not the fastest truck we've had, but it's a quick truck. And it is quicker than its the previous model, which was totally fine on its own.
Yeah, and just, you know, we're saying the older Tundra, you know, was, you know, dated. But both you and I love the V8 sound that the old Tundra do.
With that TRD exhaust package, it was one of the best sounding V8s.
So still, of course, we appreciate that. You and I, so you were in the Ram, I was in the Tundra. We did a drag race at IMI Motorsports, and I got a 7.7 approximately seconds 0 to 60 during that drag race.
Yeah.
This is a mile above sea level.
Right.
So that's decent. That's not like the quickest EcoBoost time that we've had, but still, it was quicker than the Ram. In fact, by a couple of feet.
And actually, most of you guys would mail in and call in and send horrible vibes saying, yeah, do that again at sea level and let's see what happens. And I'm willing to bet that at sea level it would be a much closer race. But it was already really close.
Yeah. And another thing that the Tundra sometimes does, at least ours did this, I don't want to call it lag because it's a pretty good powertrain, but it just wakes up at higher RPMs. It's not super linear. It's like power, and then it gets even higher power.
Because then it knows you're asking for it or something like that.
So, and even in sport mode, it does that too.
Yeah.
So launching this Tundra is a little tricky, so you just need to do it just right. But I think, like you said, at sea level, that race could have gone to the Hemi, but still the Tundra is quite good.
Yeah, it is. So we have a bunch of videos that are on TFL Truck that feature the Tundra in drag races, plus on our new drag race course, which is over a quarter of a mile long, so we can actually really test it at high elevation. And it's an interesting way of testing a variety of different trucks, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and the other thing on the inside, so the interior overall lasted pretty well. I know it was a short time.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned this with the technology, the profiles and the PIN numbers that you have to enter. It was annoying. I
Yeah.
wish Toyota make it a little bit more transparent. Maybe don't force people to
Dumb
do
it
that.
down, I say. Dumb it down. Keep it simple.
Or just put it in the background.
Yeah.
Like if I do want to enter my profile, let me do it myself. Don't like force it. Don't force it on me. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. No, I know exactly what you're saying.
So some of those elements were a little bit annoying on this truck. It never let us stranded. It never broke down. Was never in the shop. Like I said, we changed the oil on it. That's all we did.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we did to take care of this vehicle. So overall, quite positive. So I would say to wrap up, it caught up to the competition. I think it's there.
Right.
It didn't really leapfrog the competition in any way, any measurable way, I would say.
Now, the question is, and we won't know this for another few years, whether or not this new powertrain is as reliable as the old Toyota powertrain. And I have a feeling that they tested the crap out of it. They actually took an extra year.
They did, yes.
Yeah, they literally did. A full year on top of what they were normally going to do. So this truck has been tested. And I think that it's fair to say that they're going to try to hit this as reliably as possible. So
yeah,
it's a good point right there.
And they launched it during the pandemic, of course,
Yeah.
right? It came out, in December of 2021, a little bit before that. We picked it up on December 2nd. We were one of the first people. So that was difficult to do, obviously,
Yeah.
As it was for everybody in the world and in the industry. And of course, there are some hiccups. There may be some hiccups along the way, but I think overall.
Before we wrap this up, I wanted to quickly go over something that did happen to us. And this can happen to anybody who gets a first-run brand new truck that's on an all-new platform with all new components. As we mentioned, Roman did a minor bit of damage to the rear of the truck on the bumper, basically, right?
Yeah, it was off-roading. And the rear bumper, and actually a lot of the front bumper, is also a lot of plastic components.
Yes.
They're modular, which is good, because if you hit one side of it, you can replace just one side.
Right, instead of having to replace the whole damn thing when you smack it. So that's great. Unfortunately, Roman, the minor damage he did, Roman tore into Andre's office and said, "We need this replaced, make a phone call." Now, under normal circumstances, I would assume that getting a part, even on a fairly new vehicle, I should say, would be no more than a month to 6 weeks out. And that's just because of some backups. But that's not the case here.
No, it was one of the panels on the rear bumper, and all he did was he kind of drove over a little branch off road,
Right, and
one
just
of the
kind of
roots,
plucked at it.
and it plucked and pulled on the rear bumper and kind of split it, made a crack in it. That piece is still on back order.
Still.
This is about 4 months have gone by.
Exactly.
So yes, components are sparse, hard to find. I'm super happy. Knock on wood. I'm really glad the windshield wasn't broken, because we get a lot of broken windshields.
We get a ton of them, and we just stupid luck so far on that one.
So that would have been hard to find, I bet.
Yes, and that's kind of my point.
Yeah.
Is that because this truck is so new and everything on it is new, replacing components, just simple components, can be time consuming and may take you 3 or 4 times as long to do, or even more. So just keep that in mind for those of you guys who are going to buy one.
And
now,
it's the global situation we're in right now.
Exactly. The global situation is not making it any easier.
No. And so we're selling the Tundra.
Yep.
We're moving on to another truck. We don't want to announce it right here, right now.
No.
We do have a video coming up, actually. So if you're listening to us right when the podcast went live, tomorrow on TFL Truck, we'll have a full video showing what we are buying next. For the next 6 to 12 months, the next truck. It's very exciting. So come back, please.
Yes.
Yes. And we also have a video on our channel, TFL Truck, where we talk about what is it like to trade in a vehicle, how difficult or easy it can be, and how to get, what sometimes people forget. They focus on the value of the new vehicle, and then they forget about the value of their trade-in, or they don't focus on that as much.
Right.
But what we're trying to say is, please focus on that too, because you can make a lot of money, or save a lot of money.
Especially right now in this economy.
Yes, because right now used vehicles are very desirable. There's not a lot of new vehicles on sale, right? So as such, I think it's still a good time to to own a new pickup truck because you can resell it without losing almost any value.
At least in the current economy.
Yeah.
So once again, we cannot tell you what we are getting to replace this truck, but I will say one thing, and I can say this. I like the color of the new truck.
Oh.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's it. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we are curious to what your guesses are about it. It's going to be interesting to see what you guys say.
If you go to some of our other channels, you will see what we're getting.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you have it. So overall, I'm a little sad to see the Tundra go, but also some of the kind of annoying technology features that it had. I'm looking to the future and cannot wait.
That's right, guys. So thank you for joining us. Remember, every year we don't just get one; we get a couple different pickup trucks. So it's going to be interesting to see what it all boils down to this upcoming year, and you're going to find out really soon with this next truck.
Yes, and hopefully this is useful for you guys, because if you haven't bought a new Tundra yet, maybe this helps your decision, depending on what you want to do, what kind of trailers you're towing, etc.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention one more thing. Speaking of, if you're interested in buying a new Tundra, Andre did a great video. We call him Dilmer's Dude, I Love My Ride, where a guy bought an SR5, I believe.
Yes.
Long bed.
With a long bed, yes. Yeah.
And he got a relatively inexpensive version, much less expensive than our truck. And it's a great video because it goes through an actual owner's experience, not some guys who are kind of jaded who have bought so many different trucks. And I highly recommend that video. That is on TFL Truck, right?
I think it could have been on TFL Now
it's
as well.
It's either on TFL Now or TFL Truck.
And that owner, that was his fourth Tundra.
Right.
Like multiple generations of Tundras.
Yeah.
So he was very knowledgeable.
He was, especially with like the interior components of what he liked and what he didn't like. So it's a fascinating video. I highly recommend it. So it's either on TFL Now or on TFL Truck. Blue Truck, I believe. And you won't miss it. And I highly recommend checking that out.
Thank you. And remember, alltfl.com is where you'll find everything TFL. So thank you very much. My television is telling me to close down.
Yeah, everything's telling us to close down. Cheers, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.